Good morning. I would like to call the Niagara Police Service Board Finance Committee meeting to order for October 16th, 2025. My name is Laura Yip, and I am the chair of the board's Finance Committee. We begin this meeting this morning by acknowledging that the Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Service Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We'll do the roll call now. Chair Kiokio.
Present.
Member Gibson.
Present.
Vice Chair Kapasavanu.
Present.
Member Lawson.
Present.
Member McKendrick.
Present.
Member Steele.
Here.
Thank you. Do any board members have any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move right into number 5, new business. I'm going to put the report and the presentation on the floor at the same time. So moved by Member Gibson and seconded by Vice Chair Kapasavanu. Service report dated October 6, 2025, presenting the services recommendations for the 2026 operating budget, which includes a base budget increase of 8.6%, 8.1% inflationary adjustment, and 0.5% for the capital financing strategy. The report provides 2 options for the board's consideration regarding proposed program changes, resulting in a final budget of either $241,361,974, a 13.6% increase, or $239,561,511, a 12.8% increase. We'll discuss those options after the presentation. And further, that the consolidated budget of the service and board be submitted to Regional Council for approval. So again, before we discuss the report, I'll call on Chief Forty for the proposed operating budget portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and members of the board, for the opportunity to be here this morning to present on our budget. This budget presentation represents not just a set of numbers, but the continuation of a journey, a foundation built last year and continuing over the past several months, inclusive of ongoing careful analysis and planning, paired with meaningful dialogue and a shared commitment to keeping Niagara safe. Before we move into the details of this year's budget, I want to acknowledge the work of the entire team that really has propelled us to this point. We've had critical dialogue about the service's priorities, how we balance stewardship of public monies on one hand, and on the other, the increasing complexity of community safety. How we innovate and how we support the wellness and effectiveness of our members, who bravely serve and protect our community every day. This budget presentation ensures that the Niagara Regional Police Service remains an accountable, community-focused organization, ensuring our shared commitment to complying with the Community Safety and Policing Act and providing adequate and effective policing. Over the past year, we have been fully transparent and deliberate on matters related to the budget, so that there are no surprises for the board or for Regional Council. By way of background, during our 2025 operating budget presentations, there were several deferrals of program changes, and as a result, we ultimately projected an 11.2% increase for 2026. In June of 2025, as part of the 2026 process, the budget planning report was completed, and we projected a 13.4% increase based on known contractual and legislative pressures. Again, last month, we appeared before Regional Council where we reaffirmed our 13.4% forecast. This year's budget continues to build upon the foundation we've been intentionally shaping, rooted in the vision of community-centric policing. Last year, we made a strategic investment in leadership and community. You made that investment. a reflection of our belief that effective policing begins with strong, visible leadership and meaningful community engagement. This year's plan builds on that commitment and includes what we have heard directly from our community through extensive consultations, including the development of the strategic plan and the body-worn camera initiative. The message has been consistent. Our community values trust, transparency, and a modern police service that adapts and leads with accountability. An Abacus data survey was conducted in September of this year with Canadian adults on their opinion on federal policies. You may have seen the survey recently referenced in the media this week. The most notable shift in public opinion is their concern and their prioritizing of crime and public safety. This budget represents the next step in that journey. Our why is rooted in community. We protect the safety and well-being for all. Recognizing that we are building the service for the future, this graph depicts the projected growth across the region. As you can see, the percentages are increasing, and we are building so that we are well positioned to serve and protect communities that don't exist yet, communities that we know are coming. I would also like to draw your attention to this slide detailing our calls for service, which, as you can see, are projected to continue to increase on a go-forward basis. You'll notice that the graph shows a considerable projected increase as we move forward over the next 5 years. Last year, you'll recall we discussed Niagara's ranking within the Provincial Crime Severity Index. And that context remains important as we look at where we stand today. As shown here, Niagara's 2024 Crime Severity Index sits at 58.97%, 58.97, sorry, not percent, below the provincial average at 60.69, and lower than most comparable urban and regional jurisdictions across Ontario. This demonstrates that while communities continue to experience complex and serious crime, the overall severity remains moderate compared to many other regions. That said, from 2023 to 2024, Niagara Region experienced a notable increase in its overall crime severity index, with a 6.5% increase year over year. This is referenced on page 120 of the budget package within the supplemental report that was provided to you. The growth was driven primarily by a significant increase in the Violent Crime Severity Index, which jumped from 68.83 to 78.46. In contrast, Nonviolent Crime Severity Index saw only a modest rise from 50.49 to 51.68. This pattern suggests that the recent change in our crime severity index is largely attributable to more serious or higher impact violent incidents than broad increases in all crime types. It is a reminder that even as overall crime levels stabilize, serious violence continues to place significant operational and emotional demands on our people and must remain a central focus of our resourcing decisions moving forward. On September 4th, you will recall we presented and discussed information to Regional Council, which remains relevant to the discussion today surrounding pressures that are influencing this budget. In this quick snapshot, you'll see that the emergence and growing sophistication of crime has also been factored into the budget discussions. In the chart showing domestic violence-related calls for service, you can see that in 27, we had just under 5,100 calls. By 2024, that number had increased to 6,800, a substantial rise of more than 30%. Each of these calls requires a careful, resource-intensive response to ensure the safety of victims and accountability for offenders. With the board's support last year, we have tried to address this by properly staffing the domestic violence unit during 2025, during this year, shifting from a primarily reactive approach to a more proactive model one that also focuses on preventing further victimization. This expansion enabled proactive initiatives such as the Early Intervention Program, enhanced warrants and compliance checks, expanded training for both frontline and investigative members, and the development of dashboards to help investigators track emerging trends. It represents the value added by your support and your investment. On the right, you'll see the trend in homicides. While Niagara has historically experienced relatively few homicides each year, we have seen a remarkable increase in recent years. In 2020, there were 4 homicides. That rose to 12 in 2023, 15 in 2024, which you would be aware was the highest in our region's history. These examples illustrate how the complexity and volume of serious crime continues to grow, placing increasing pressures on our detectives and frontline personnel alike. Further, when we look at emerging crimes that have significant community impact, we see similar upward trends. On the left, child abuse-related calls for service have risen from 327 in 2020 to 460 in 2024, a 40% increase over just 4 years. Each of these cases requires specialized investigative resources, strong community partnerships, and careful coordination to ensure the protection of vulnerable children. On the right, sexual assault-related calls for service have also grown dramatically. From the low of 390 in 2020, calls rose to over 600 in 2022. While there was a slight decline in 2023 and 2024, we remain at levels far higher than just a few years ago. These cases are complex, time-intensive, and deeply impactful on victims. I spoke earlier to the rise in the Crime Severity Index. However, when we look at our clearance rates, our investigators were able to solve a larger portion of the cases reported. And this is referenced on page 116 of your budget package. In 2023, our clearance rate was 35.6%, while in 2024, it is now 37.74%, which is still below the provincial average. The combined data suggests that Niagara faced a tougher crime environment, but improved its investigative outcomes at the same time. This is an important distinction. In some regions, a rising crime severity index is accompanied by falling clearance rates, which signals increased strain on policing capacity, investigators' capacity. Our improvements come at a human cost, placing considerable strain on investigators and officers who manage heavy workloads and long hours, raising questions about the sustainability over time. When we look at the Niagara region in a snapshot, we see the population forecasted to be over 530,000 in 2025, not including the tourism influx with a considerable land and water policing area that our members actively patrol and respond to calls for service on. Our waterways also require police resources, with our marine unit actively patrolling 1,500 square kilometers of waterway. In addition, the 4 border crossings that contribute $100 billion in trade every year. We also need to consider the impact of non-residents. On top of the tourism influx, over 29,000 students and staff affiliated to Brock University and Niagara College, as well as seasonal residents living in a number of municipalities such as Sherkston Shores and Fort Erie. Niagara is an aging community, a retirement destination for those in larger cities, like Toronto, for instance, and we continue to see an influx of new international residents and students. Given the beauty of the region, Niagara is also host to a number of special events, including cultural activities and festivals. Festivals like Canal Days, Niagara Grape and Wine Festival, the Shaw Festival, and it is a desirable destination to celebrate Canada Day, and New Year's Eve. As we move forward in this presentation, it is important to pause and reflect on what the community has told us. Through the consultations, we heard about the importance of trust, transparency, accessibility, and accountability. People want a police service that listens and that reflects the needs and values of the community. I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of the comments that we heard, speaking to greater visibility in neighborhoods, stronger community partnerships. Through the program changes that I'm about to detail, this is a community-informed budget, one built on listening and on acting with intention to strengthen the relationship between the service and the people that we serve. Next, I'll be walking you through the program changes for this year. The data and the numbers speak for themselves. When we look at them one at a time, the risk is that you lose sight of the overall picture. So I pause here and to ground our conversations here to demonstrate the totality of the pressures that are being faced across the service. I would now like to discuss the proposed program changes. First is the increase on the front line, an investment in community safety as we recognize and respect the pressure on the members working the front line. Uniform frontline patrol is the most vital and visible function across police services in Ontario and Canada. It is the primary method of contact between the police and the communities we serve, and it is often a barometer by which the community measures the effectiveness of a police service. Now, this is referenced on page 19 of your package. As part of the package, the board was provided a supplemental report that was prepared by the Office of Corporate Strategy and Innovation. The supplemental report, based on academic research from the University of Michigan and used by other police agencies across Canada and North America, considered the shift relief factor, taking into account the current 12-hour shift and the associated workload. This continues with a long-term strategy of properly resourcing the front line, ensuring that we have enough members available to respond to calls for service and to comply with the obligations of the collective agreement. This will allow us to continue implementing a stratified response to ensure that we have members available to focus on prolific offenders, problematic locations, high crime locations, and high call types. To be intelligence-led and address emerging community issues, drawing on the strengths of our crime analysis unit. In other words, to be proactive in nature and not simply reactive. Continuing under the theme of community safety, I want to turn your attention to what I would describe as a necessary right-sizing of our homicide unit. Page 30 of your budget package references. You will recall from previous presentations to you in this room and to Regional Council the pressures that the unit is facing. As we discussed, in 2024 saw a record number of homicides taking place within our region, as we ended the year with 15. That is not just a number, that is families whose lives have been changed forever, and 15 complex investigations that require a depth of skill and time that really our most experienced investigators provide. This level of demand, coupled with the increased legislative and procedural pressures we're facing, has made it clear that our current structure is not sustainable. The Major Crime Unit was formed in 1993, following the tragic murders of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey, right here in Niagara. Murders that deeply impacted this community and the policing profession across Canada. The Campbell Commission in 1996 examined every aspect of investigative practices and led to the creation of Ontario's Major Case Management System, a system that prescribes how major investigations should be undertaken. Given that history, we have a responsibility to maintain these investigative standards. Under major case management, every homicide investigation must have an assigned command triangle, a major case manager, a primary investigator, and a file coordinator. The homicide unit is currently divided into 2 teams. Each team consists of 2 detective sergeants and 3 detective constables, with 1 additional temporary training constable. It is important to note that over the last 30-plus years, the authorized strength of this unit has only increased by 5 detective constables. That's 3 decades of increased population, coupled with increasing legislative complexity, all with essentially the same core staffing complement. It is with this in mind that we bring forward this program change to add 1 inspector, 1 staff sergeant, and 1 detective constable to right-size this unit for today's realities. On the practical side, preliminary hearings now often take 4 to 6 weeks, requiring the same time commitment as a full, complete trial. Crown attorneys now expect digital evidence presentations, including cell phone data analysis, electronic communications, and hours of CCTV footage compiled with edited video exhibits. This is a monumental workload. The benefits of this program change are both operational and human. The addition of an inspector within this structure is a key component. This role is not simply administrative. It provides strategic leadership and oversight, which is necessary for a unit managing investigations of this magnitude. The inspector will ensure consistent application of major case management principles while strengthening the supervisory span of control and allow for improved coordination across homicide teams and with partner agencies in the GTA, across the province, and across the country. As the service continues to respond to increasingly complex and high-profile incidents, it is essential that our investigative command structure has the depth and leadership capacity to meet these demands. From a compliance standpoint, the addition of a staff sergeant and constables means that major case management reporting will be strengthened. More resources means that more cases can be updated in real time, allowing for quick data sharing between and across agencies. As the complexity of homicides increases, we need to ensure our ability to find justice for families in the community also increases. Increased resources will also improve victim family support through the investigative and judicial processes. This investment will allow for a more reasonable distribution of work, reducing the frequency of excessively long hours. You heard Staff Sergeant Neville talk about the pressures on his unit. Our investigators give so much of themselves to this work, and they deserve the support that they require. Conversely, the risk of not supporting this program change is significant. First, there's a responsibility to the families. Second, the reputation to the service and the board. If we continue to see these increases without increasing our investigative capacity, our ability to thoroughly investigate and prosecute each case could be compromised, and that would erode public trust. We must respect the fact that major investigations are becoming more complex, driven by advancements in digital evidence, and often committed by persons from outside the region. The YWCA describes Niagara as the epicenter for human trafficking. Traffickers take control of their victims in various ways, such as taking away their identity documents and passports. Sexual abuse, threats, intimidation, physical violence, and isolation. It is not just a policing issue, it is a complex and deeply troubling crime that demands an urgent and properly resourced response. And this is referenced on page 44 of your budget package. Behind every investigation is a victim whose life has been exploited through manipulation and fear. These are not crimes that occur in isolation or at the margins. They are happening in our neighborhoods and online. A single staff sergeant oversees the current human trafficking unit, in addition to the sexual assault unit and the child abuse units. The sergeant also oversees the offender management and repeat offender parole enforcement, also known as the ROPE team. The pace and complexity of human trafficking investigations have far outpaced our current capacity. These investigations require a combination of techniques used across multiple disciplines, from covert surveillance and intelligence operations to the sensitive and sustained victim support required in sexual assault and child abuse cases. These investigations are often lengthy and resource intensive. Each detective constable is currently responsible for managing approximately 16 victims, supporting 16 people whose lives depend on our ability to provide safety and justice. This is a challenging caseload for any investigator, and it forces the team, sadly, to triage victims, something that stands in direct conflict with our values. The need for increased staffing within the unit is clear. With additional personnel, the service can expand proactive checks, identify more victims, and disrupt organized crime groups that profit from this predatory behavior. It would also enable us to properly investigate the growing number of labor trafficking cases in our region. These are crimes that remain largely hidden due to the vulnerability of migrant workers and newcomers who fear deportation. According to the UN Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons, human trafficking is defined as the recruitment, transportation, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or a position of vulnerability, or giving or receiving payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation, end my quote. Increased resources would also allow us to meet our obligations under the National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking and continue to serve as a key partner in Niagara's Anti-Human Trafficking Response Protocol, which was signed in 2018, whereby we work alongside 13 community partners. If we fail to strengthen this unit, we risk more than just investigative backlogs, we risk lives. Without additional support, our officers will continue to be stretched beyond sustainable limits, and more importantly, victims may fall through the cracks. The expansion of this unit is not simply an operational necessity, it is a moral imperative. Sexual assault remains one of the most deeply personal and devastating crimes that our members investigate. They're not just files, they are the lived trauma of individuals in our community who have had their dignity and safety taken away from them. Our sexual assault unit has long been a cornerstone of our investigative excellence and victim-centered approach. Yet today, it is a unit that is under significant strain. Page 37 of your package references. The sexual assault unit currently consists of 6 detective constables supported by a single detective sergeant. As I referenced, the staff sergeant that oversees human trafficking also oversees this unit. In the past 4 years, the number and complexity of sexual assault investigations in Niagara has almost doubled with no additional resources. Technology has advanced, evidence demands have grown, and investigators are now expected to navigate a sophisticated web of judicial authorizations, digital evidence, inclusive of DNA warrants, all while ensuring the sensitive, trauma-informed care of victims. This rising complexity has collided with turnover and transition within the unit. Many experienced investigators have advanced to other positions or promotions, also leaving a gap in specialized knowledge that really takes several years to develop. The current structure leaves one detective sergeant carrying a supervisory burden that has simply outgrown the role. The volume of cases combined with the major case management requirements, statutory obligations under the Community Safety and Policing Act, mandatory training, creates a genuine risk of noncompliance and potential liability for the service as well. Niagara once stood as a provincial leader in the management of sexual assault investigations after the Campbell Commission that I previously referenced, when there was a recommendation to create standalone units. Today, we are falling behind our comparators. Increasing the authorized strength of the sexual assault unit is essential. It will ensure our ability to continue to engage fully with key community partners like Jillian's Place, Birchway Niagara, the Niagara Sexual Assault Treatment Center, and the Centre de Santé Communautaire, partnerships that are foundational to victim advocacy and recovery. The risks of inaction are clear and immediate. Delays in investigations threaten justice to meet our inability to meet the Regina versus Jordan Supreme Court of Canada timelines. The court demands and pressures continue to grow, and the emotional toll on our members is profound. These investigators bear witness on a daily basis to some of the disturbing realities of human behavior. Without proper support, we risk justice for the victims, and we risk the wellness of our members. And when I say victims, I prefer to call them survivors, but our ability to provide justice for survivors. Along the same unit, the child abuse unit assists children who have been victimized and silenced by those meant or intended to protect them. Yet the demands placed upon this unit and the members within it have grown to an unsustainable level. This is referenced on page 34 of your package. From 4 years ago to now, the workload has increased over 50% with no additional resources. The child abuse unit currently consists of 1 detective sergeant and 6 detective constables, all under the supervision of the same staff sergeant that I previously referenced. As our collective understanding of trauma-informed interviewing and the psychology of child victims has evolved, so too has the time required for every single investigation. Similar to the investigation of sexual offenses, the explosion of digital evidence, things like smartphones, apps, encrypted communications, our investigators are now tasked with processing vast volumes of electronic information for every single investigation that they undertake. Each new technological advancement creates an opportunity to gather more evidence, but also creates additional investigative pressures. In 2024 alone, the Child Abuse Unit authored and executed 50 search warrants and production orders, plus 6 DNA warrants. By the midpoint of this year, that number has already reached 40 warrants and 2 DNA warrants, and is projected to climb to 80 warrants and 4 DNA warrants by end of the year. As an example, reported widely in the media in August of 2025, one of our investigations resulted in charges against Todd Williston, involving over 20 child victims and over 100 criminal charges. This demonstrates the sheer scale and complexity now facing this team. These, sadly, are the new realities of child-focused investigations in the digital age. The demands on leadership within the Child Abuse Unit have also grown dramatically. The detective sergeant is now responsible for reviewing investigations in their entirety to ensure compliance with the new training and regulatory requirements under the Community Safety and Policing Act. Additional investigators would help meet mandatory disclosure timelines, produce high-quality search warrants, and provide the time necessary for proper court preparation and victim support, as well as continued and enhanced collaboration with our community partners to allow for early intervention and ultimately prevention. Every serious collision on our roadways represents not only a tragedy for those involved, but also a complex and resource-intensive investigation. Our collision reconstruction unit plays a vital role in uncovering the truth behind these incidents. Their work determines cause and accountability for families who have lost loved ones or suffered life-altering injuries, and this is referenced on page 25 of your package. The unit currently consists of 6 detectives responsible for investigating every fatal and life-threatening collision, as well as fail-to-remain investigations, serious departmental collisions, that means police involving police vehicles, and impaired driving investigations requiring blood warrants. The Collision Reconstruction Unit also provides expert support to investigative services, the Homicide Unit, the Criminal Investigation Branch, and of course, our frontline uniformed patrol. These investigations are among the most technical and time-consuming in policing. They require highly specialized training ranging from advanced scene examination and 3D mapping to physics-based reconstruction and expert testimony in court. Each investigation can consume days or weeks of work, often requiring road closures and significant assistance from frontline officers. Expanding the unit would allow the service to reduce that dependency on frontline members and therefore strengthen our overall service delivery. To date, 2025 has marked one of the most demanding years in nearly 2 decades for our Collision Reconstruction Unit. And I know the board is aware of this through our regular board meetings. But up to the beginning of this month, our Collision Reconstruction Unit investigators have managed 33 fatal collisions and 14 life-threatening incidents, a combined total that has not been seen in 20 years. This translates to more than 5 fatal investigations per detective, each involving extensive evidence collection, technical analysis, and report preparation. In addition to these investigations, detectives are managing 18 criminal and provincial prosecutions this year, alongside blood warrant responsibilities and, of course, the resulting court appearances. The pressure on this team is immense and unsustainable. Expanding the unit would improve scheduling, which would then reduce the requirement for unscheduled callouts, all while improving investigative quality and timeliness. Additional staffing would also enhance mentorship and succession planning, ensuring that new detectives develop the expertise to analyze complex collision data and testify confidently in court. The benefits are clear: better service delivery and a stronger investigative standard. The risks of inaction are equally clear. Insufficient staffing will continue to drive overtime costs and a risk of burnout. It places investigators' health and safety at risk and threatens the quality and timeliness of critical reports. Over time, these pressures contribute to departmental turnover, eroding institutional knowledge and weakening our ability to sustain high investigative standards. The right sizing of the Collision Reconstruction Unit is not simply an operational adjustment. It is a necessary investment in safety and the integrity of our police service. Although it is not in the business case, I'm aware that when you look at our comparators, we have 6 detectives compared to 8 in Durham, Hamilton, and Halton. There are 16 in Peel and 20 in Waterloo. And our cases per investigator are standing currently at 5, which are more than double what our comparators are seeing. While our Collision Reconstruction Unit focuses on investigations, Our traffic enforcement unit is focused on prevention and enforcement. In essence, trying to stop collisions before they happen. Referenced on page 28 of your budget package. In addition to enforcing the Highway Traffic Act, the unit conducts impaired driving investigations, manages the RIDE program, responds to traffic complaints, and carries out commercial motor vehicle enforcement. Their work is both proactive and highly technical, requiring specialized training and ongoing skill development to keep pace with changing legislation, equipment, and technology. In 2024, we implemented a pilot project to create a training program coordinator within the Traffic Enforcement Unit with the goal of addressing concerns regarding traffic safety. This position is essential to maintaining the high standards of training and certification that is expected of officers that are engaged in traffic enforcement. The training coordinator is responsible for programs that support our members in enforcing traffic laws and maintaining compliance with provincial legislation. They also represent our service on the Provincial Speed Advisory Committee and lead collaborative initiatives with the Ontario Police College to deliver new online training modules across the province. Creating this role ensures that our service prioritizes traffic safety. The position not only addresses succession planning by preserving institutional knowledge, but also enhances administrative efficiency, allowing unit leadership to focus on mentorship along with enforcement priorities and community engagement. Shifting now from roadways to crime scenes, the focus turns to another critical pillar of our investigative capability, our Forensic Services Unit. These members are the crime scene experts behind some of the most complex and high-profile cases in Niagara. This is referenced on page 40 of your budget package. Our Forensic Services Unit is currently composed of 1 staff sergeant and 1 detective sergeant, both working days, and 12 detective constables who operate on the uniform platoon schedule with 3 assigned per shift. It is recommended that this unit increase by 1 detective sergeant to improve supervision and align the unit's authorized strength with the growing caseload and complexity of forensic work. The mandate of the Forensic Services Unit is broad and highly technical. Members are responsible for the examination and photography of crime scenes, the collection and evaluation of physical and biological evidence, fingerprint and footwear comparison, and the preparation of detailed forensic materials for court presentation. They support investigations ranging from sudden deaths and major crimes to sexual assaults, property offenses, and inquests. Members often work around the clock under difficult and graphic conditions. The complexity of forensic work has evolved dramatically. A homicide investigation 10 or 15 years ago might have required 1 or 2 days of scene work. What I mean by that is days spent at the location where the victim is recovered, and a modest collection of evidence at the scene. Today, these same investigations can demand multiple teams, specialized expertise, and scene preservation that can last a week or more. Advancements in technologies such as bloodstain pattern analysis, DNA collection and sequencing, and Lumilite technology have enhanced investigative precision, but have also significantly increased the time, training, and expertise required. The unit's workload has also expanded beyond traditional crime scene response. The Forensic Services Unit now oversees and trains scenes of crime officers, also known by the acronym of SOCO, you've probably heard of that, across the service, manages the collection and processing of DNA samples from accused persons, and ensures the logistical readiness of critical forensic tools such as DNA and sexual assault kits. Each of these responsibilities demands technical knowledge and strict adherence to evidentiary and legal standards. The addition of a second detective sergeant would enhance both operational efficiency and member wellness. The risks of not advancing this change are significant. Training and recertification requirements have increased. Every member must maintain credentials with annual updates and recertification every 3 years. This isn't just about adding people, it's about protecting the integrity of our investigations and the wellness of our members. Good? I'll continue? Okay. Our ability to protect the community does not begin at the moment of crisis. It begins long before with preparation. We are recommending the addition of 1 staff sergeant and 1 constable in the emergency management and planning unit. This is referenced on page 48 of your budget package. These positions position us to comply with our legislative obligations under the Provincial Extreme Incident Response Plan and the Community Safety Policing Act. The complexity of emergency preparedness across Niagara continues to grow to proactively address large-scale public events, natural disasters, acts of terrorism, cyber threats, and other emerging risks that demand operational readiness. Niagara's landscape presents unique challenges. Our region is home to critical infrastructure, ranging from power generation facilities and border crossings to major public venues, agricultural operations, and industrial assets such as water treatment plants, emergency service facilities, transportation hubs, energy infrastructure, communication towers, and data centers. Expanding the Emergency Management and Planning Unit will allow the service to strengthen its leadership role in regional emergency management, improving interagency coordination, and ensure the continuity of essential operations in times of a crisis. These additional positions will also enhance the service's ability to conduct risk assessments, develop and test comprehensive emergency plans, and increase the frequency and sophistication of training exercises. They will provide the capacity to design and lead joint exercises with our municipal, provincial, and federal partners, ensuring that if and when a large-scale emergency occurs, emergency responders are aligned. The benefits of this investment are clear. It will strengthen training capacity, ensuring our members are equipped with the skills and knowledge to act decisively under pressure. And it will fortify our partnerships, recognizing that true emergency management is collaborative, not siloed. And I am aware that we are in the throes of preparing a scenario at the end of the month and also preparing a larger scenario that would involve national partners to ensure that we're safe in Niagara. Now, with respect to our waterways. As discussed, and I know the board is aware, under Section 10.6 of the Community Safety and Policing Act, we are now responsible for the policing of all waterways. We are responsible for policing 2 Great Lakes, the Niagara River, and an international border that stretches across some of the busiest and most unpredictable waters in Canada. In total, we police, as I referenced earlier, 1,500 square kilometers of waterways here in Niagara. We are recommending an expansion of 2 constables in 2026 as the first phase of a multi-year plan. This expansion will allow for simultaneous patrols on both Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, and for enhanced coverage along the cross-border waterway corridor between Canada and the United States, and this is referenced on page 52 of your package. The Marine and Underwater Search and Recovery Unit currently consists of 1 sergeant, 1 dive coordinator, and 6 full-time constables. Every member is a fully trained marine operator and commercial diver, a combination of skills that is rare and highly specialized. In addition to the marine and dive responsibilities, members also serve in several critical support roles across the service, including the tactical support for the Emergency Task Unit, the hazmat response, police marksman operations, and explosive disposal support. Expanding this unit will directly strengthen safety as well as operational flexibility. With current staffing, the team cannot maintain full coverage of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and the Niagara River when members are away from mandated training, on annual leave, or engaged in emergency deployments. Additional personnel will ensure continuous presence across all waterways, especially during the high-traffic boating season. It will also support succession planning, a pressing need in a unit where the training timelines are lengthy. Becoming a qualified dive supervisor takes approximately 5 years of mentorship and operational experience. Beyond operational readiness, this expansion will enhance training stability. Increasing the unit's complement will provide the flexibility necessary for uninterrupted training cycles, ensuring members remain fully certified and prepared to respond. Without increased staffing, vast portions of our jurisdiction will remain under-patrolled, leaving communities and boaters vulnerable and creating opportunities for criminal activity to go undetected. As we continue to strengthen our specialized units and partnerships, our focus naturally extends to one of Niagara's defining features, our border. We are re-engaging with the Border Enforcement Security Task Force, or commonly known as BEST, as part of a broader strategy to enhance cooperation with our national and our United States law enforcement partners. This partnership directly supports our commitment to protecting our communities from the growing threats associated with transnational crime and cross-border criminal activity. This is referenced on page 50 of your budget package. The Border Enforcement Security Task Force model is designed to eliminate the traditional barriers between agencies, fostering seamless collaboration between Canadian and American law enforcement partners. The mission is clear: to identify, investigate, disrupt, and dismantle transnational criminal organizations that operate across borders. Because the threats that we face, organized crime, human trafficking, weapons, and drug smuggling, and cyber-enabled criminal networks no longer stop at jurisdictional boundaries. As such, neither can our response. Re-engaging with BEST provides our service with access to real-time intelligence combined with operational resources on both sides of the border. BEST currently consists of 16 police agencies, inclusive of the large agencies in Ontario. It strengthens our ability to protect Niagara's communities, border crossings, and trade corridors, all while contributing to broader public safety efforts. Niagara's unique geography makes participation in this task force not just beneficial, but essential. As we continue to focus on our borders, with a particular focus on border integrity and, as I referenced, transnational crime, the service has engaged in discussions with the province. The board will recall the recent presentation provided to them by the OPP. The addition of 5 tactical flight officers to the Air Support Unit will significantly strengthen our service's ability to detect and respond to threats that move quickly across borders and jurisdictions. With dedicated tactical flight officers on board as part of the Ontario Provincial Police Air Support Program, Niagara will benefit from real-time intelligence and rapid response capabilities that directly enhances officer and public safety, This is referenced on page 55 of your package. This expansion will provide our service with a constant aerial presence, an advantage that allows officers on the ground to make faster and more informed decisions. It minimizes the need for direct confrontation by identifying and tracking suspects from the air, reducing risks to both officers and the general public. From smuggling and human trafficking to illegal border crossings and search and rescue operations. The Air Support Unit will now have the capacity to provide real-time situational awareness, ensuring a coordinated and strategic response to complex incidents. Importantly, as referenced by Member Yip at our board presentation by the OPP, this program is fully funded through a minimum 5-year joint air support unit transfer payment agreement with the provincial government, which comes into effect on October 1st, 2026. This investment comes at no additional cost for us while delivering clear and measurable public safety benefits. Tow truck operations across Niagara have become a growing concern for both the public and Regional Council. This issue has resurfaced in recent months due to uncertainty surrounding the management of the regional tow truck rotation list, a function that was once handled effectively by the service through a dedicated licensing and bylaw unit, and this is referenced on page 23 of your package. I know the board is aware that in May 2019, responsibility for the business licensing, including tow truck operations, was transferred to the Niagara region. However, at a regional council meeting on March 20th, 2025, several tow truck operators raised concerns about the administration and fairness of the rotation list. During that meeting, regional staff clarified that the region no longer oversees the tow truck rotation, as the Provincial Ministry of Transportation now regulates licensing under the Towing and Storage Safety and Enforcement Act. The result is a gap, impacting public confidence in how this essential service is managed. We proposed that the service resume responsibility for managing and administering the tow truck rotation list, supported by the addition of two police constables dedicated as tow truck coordinators. Direct police involvement now ensures compliance with licensing standards, deters criminal activity within the industry, and potentially restores public confidence in how towing operations are managed. And we are also aware, the board would also be aware, that the region is preparing a report to come back to provide information with respect to a potential path forward with the region. In 2014, the service implemented a centralized prisoner management model that combines sworn police officers, sergeants, and special constables to provide strong, continuous supervision and oversight. In 2023, a new model was introduced that removed sworn police officers and replaced sergeants with special constable supervisors. While this change was well-intentioned, it has created notable gaps in supervision and overall safety for both prisoners and our members. A 2024 business analysis by Dr. Perez confirmed these concerns, identifying reduced oversight, increased organizational risk, and a decline in the quality of our Crown briefs. Crown briefs are reports submitted to Crown Counsel when someone is charged with an offense. Housing persons in custody within the central holding unit carries inherent organizational risk. Individuals brought into custody are often in volatile states, some experiencing acute mental health crisis or the effects of dangerous illicit substances. Effective supervision, timely monitoring, and consistent physical cell checks are imperative to safeguard these vulnerable individuals, particularly in light of the ongoing opioid crisis affecting our country. Under the current model, special constable supervisors face numerous competing priorities that heighten these risks. They field an average of nearly 100 phone calls per day while simultaneously managing prisoner and member safety. Compounding these challenges, special constables are often required to work through their obligated lunch periods following the model change, an indicator of workload strain that negatively impacts member wellness and increases the risk of burnout. The physical safety of our members has also been compromised. In one recent incident, a prisoner concealed a knife internally and later used it to self-harm after being placed in a cell. This situation presented a serious danger to both the prisoner and the special constable present, none of whom are equipped with firearms or conducted energy weapons. Additionally, with many new junior officers in the service, real-time review and mentorship are essential to ensure the production of high-quality Crown briefs, which I just referenced, and to ensure timely disclosure and compliance with prescribed timelines, deadlines. I've talked about Regina versus Jordan already. To address these issues, the service recommends reintroducing sworn sergeants into the central hold unit beginning in 2026. Each platoon would consist of one booking sergeant, one administrative sergeant, one special constable supervisor, and 3 special constables. This revised model will enhance prisoner safety by allowing special constables to dedicate their full attention to monitoring prisoners and completing regular cell checks without administrative distractions. It will improve documentation and court readiness through real-time Crown Brief reviews by experienced sergeants ensuring quality, compliance, and timely disclosure. It will strengthen supervision and accountability within arguably the most high-risk environment, our cells. It will support member wellness by balancing workloads and ensuring sustained staffing capacity. This proposed structure aligns with a recent inquest recommendation calling for improved staffing and monitoring within custodial settings, and this board would be aware of those. That inquest and the recommendations came through Executive Director Reid. Reintroducing sworn sergeants represents a necessary modernization of operations that reinforces accountability and public trust in the service's custody management practices. Our next program change focuses on the well-being and sustainability of our members, ensuring that they can return to meaningful work safely and effectively after injury or illness. This program change introduces 2 key components: supporting the mobile support unit through the leadership of 2 sergeants and the addition of 2 occupational therapists to our disability management team. Together, they will strengthen how we support members returning to work through accommodation or modified duties. This is referenced on page 61 of your package. The mobile support unit provides a structured and purposeful role for frontline members on temporary or permanent accommodations. 2 sergeants will oversee the daily operations of the unit, ensuring proper supervision and accountability. From their workstation, the accommodated officers respond to lower priority calls by phone, allowing them to document reports by following up with complainants, thereby easing the demand on our frontline officers as well. This allows frontline officers to remain focused on high priority, proactive, and community-based policing, improving overall patrol capacity and service delivery. The occupational therapist will bring professional expertise in assessing the physical and cognitive demands of each position across the service. They will manage all aspects of our return to work and accommodation program, ensuring members are matched to duties that reflect their abilities while maintaining productivity and engagement. This is a shift from absence management to functional abilities management. a more proactive and supportive approach because we are engaging early and directly with our members. The occupational therapist will also provide early intervention and long-term accommodation planning for members with chronic conditions, helping them remain at work safely and productively. Tying back to our earlier discussion on the homicide unit, this next request focuses on the critical infrastructure that supports every major crime investigation. The crime analysis unit currently consists of 8 analysts supervised by 1 manager, providing support across homicide, intelligence, district, and violent crime investigations. This unit is the backbone of our intelligence-led policing approach, ensuring that investigators have the data and insight needed to identify offenders, connect cases, and bring resolution to victims and their families. This is referenced on page 42 of your package. These members are essential to ensuring compliance with Ontario's Major Case Management Policy and the Community Safety and Policing Act. However, the current workload is unsustainable. Analysts are currently spending the majority of their time entering data into PowerCase, the province's regulated investigative software, which I know the board is familiar with. That means our analysts who are trained to interpret patterns, link suspects, and forecast emerging threats are instead tied to administrative work. The result has been growing backlogs and delayed compliance with provincial reporting standards. A recent audit identified more than 6,000 overdue notifications, each one representing a potential link between cases or suspects. This backlog poses a significant risk to both our compliance and our investigative effectiveness. The proposed program change would create dedicated major case management specialists to support the crime analysis unit. This would allow analysts to return their focus to the work that adds the most value in driving proactive policing and supporting homicide and violent crime investigations. It would also improve collaboration between the homicide, special victims, and crime analysis units, ensuring a coordinated and compliant approach to case management. As we continue modernizing our operations, we must also strengthen the structures that protect the service's integrity. The next request addresses the growing need for consistent and professional support in managing civil claims and legal matters involving the board, the service, and our members. Currently, the unit operates with 1 sergeant, 2 constables, and 1 civilian clerk. While this structure worked in theory, long-term absences and temporary accommodations have left the unit without consistent staffing or specialized expertise. The result has been procedural delays, which carries risk for both financial and reputational consequences for the service and the board. The addition of a full-time civilian paralegal will bring stability along with long-term cost savings because you no longer have a sworn officer acting in that capacity. This position will ensure consistent, timely, and professional handling of civil claims, improve coordination with the region's legal department and our service's general counsel, and reduce reliance on temporary backfills or accommodated members. This civilian expertise will create continuity and efficiency within the unit while freeing sworn officers to return to operational policing duties. As we modernize our operations, ensuring the accuracy and reliability of our data systems is essential to both public safety and operational excellence. One area where this is especially critical is in our computer-aided dispatch, also known as CAD, and geographical information systems, also known as GIS. This is on page 75 of your budget package. The current CAD or GIS analyst carries an expansive workload managing data quality, system development, application support, and user assistance. That leaves little capacity to meet the growing technical demands placed on the system. The services investment in the Environmental System Research Institute, also known as ESRI, you've heard that acronym, enterprise platform, and the transition to Next Generation 911, also known as NG 911, both require constant attention to ensure accuracy, reliability, and compliance. With NG 911, precise GIS data will be essential for routing emergency calls while pinpointing caller locations, then dispatching resources in real time. The addition of a dedicated CAD GIS analyst will allow one position to focus exclusively on maintaining data integrity, GIS compliance, and system upgrades, while the other continues to support application development and operational needs. This investment ensures that our service is fully prepared for the demands of NG 911 while improving efficiency and reliability across all dispatch and mapping systems. Beyond compliance, this position will also advance several strategic priorities, including crime analysis and mapping, patrol resource optimization, and traffic and collision analytics. It will also support community transparency through interactive public mapping dashboards and open data initiatives that enhance understanding of policing activity across Niagara. A sharing of resources with the Niagara region, was considered but deemed unfeasible given the sensitivity of the data within our systems and those of our partner agencies. Maintaining secure in-house expertise is the only responsible way to protect both operational integrity and public confidence. I should note as well that a cost-sharing initiative with St. Catharines Fire, who is partnering with us on NG 911, has been advanced, and they are willing to assume 50% of the costs associated with this position. Our next proposal strengthens the service's internal accountability and resource management without increasing authorized strength. Beginning January 1st, 2026, we will repurpose one existing courier position into a procurement specialist role within the quartermaster unit. The quartermaster unit operates through two key sections: distribution and procurement, working together to equip our members with the material resources they need to serve safely and effectively, while the distribution section manages the flow of clothing, equipment, and supplies across the service. The procurement section oversees the acquisition of goods and services, ensuring compliance with purchasing regulations and value for money. Over time, the demands of the unit have grown, particularly with procurement. Capacity has limited the ability to focus on formal procurements planning, as well as adherence to the Police Service Board's purchasing bylaw. Repurposing this position will create a dedicated role that is focused on formal procurements as well as strategic resourcing. This will ensure compliance with trade agreements and procurement legislation while strengthening oversight and reducing organizational risk. As I've referenced on many occasions, evidence-based policing and data-driven decisions are essential to both maintaining public safety and organizational excellence. Our corporate strategy and innovation unit is central to this work. This is on page 72 of your package. To strengthen their efforts, the addition of a business analyst will enhance the ability to evaluate data while identifying opportunities for efficiency across the organization. This position will ensure that we are better equipped to meet evolving technological and community demands through informed, evidence-based decision-making. The business analyst will work closely with Dr. Perez, our corporate analyst, and other key partners to streamline workflows while advancing a culture of continuous improvement. By analyzing business needs and developing process maps, this role will help reduce redundancies and support better alignment of our resources. This position will also play a pivotal role in innovation and technology integration, assessing new digital tools, automation systems, and data visualization technologies that can ultimately enhance our operations. This includes supporting initiatives such as digital evidence management, hotspot mapping, predictive analytics, offender management, and workforce optimization. In addition, the business analyst will help the service achieve organizational excellence by developing performance dashboards, benchmarking against best practices, and tracking progress against key performance indicators. This ensures our strategies remain transparent and responsive to community needs. At the January board meeting, we presented to you an update on the use of body-worn cameras across Ontario and Canada. Following an extensive review of pilot projects coupled with academic research, the board approved a community consultation that included community members, academics, staff, technology, vendors, and policing partners nationwide. In April, we came back to the board with these findings, which were clear. Both the community and our members strongly support the use of body-worn cameras. However, they also emphasized the need for careful implementation, safeguarding privacy, ensuring secure data management, and ongoing community engagement. To meet these expectations and deliver a successful rollout, the service is requesting the addition of 1 staff sergeant and 1 technology services technician, along with 5 digital evidence management system clerks and 1 freedom of information analyst. These positions will oversee evidence management, ensure proper handling of disclosure requests, and maintain compliance with both privacy law and freedom of information obligations. This initiative is about ensuring that every interaction between police and the public can be reviewed through a lens of accuracy and transparency. It will also enhance officer safety, improve the quality of evidence when these cases move through the court process, as well as strengthen the community's confidence in our service. Looking at operational efficiencies, the first was realized within our Records and Information Management Unit. Previously, a police record check took an average of 12 weeks to process for members of our community. With the implementation of new software, we are now able to complete them within 1 week, a 91.7% improvement in efficiency. This change has significantly reduced backlogs and wait times, allowing residents to receive results nearly 3 months sooner. Faster processing not only improves service to the public, but also strengthens community trust in police services, all done without adding any additional staff. As you may have recently seen in media coverage, new requirements for adoptive families regarding police record checks have added additional demand to police services across the province. Without these improvements, that increase in volume would have placed even greater strain on the system, and had we not implemented the change that we implemented, I would likely be standing here today before you asking to increase the unit by potentially as many as 10 or 12 members. Our second efficiency came through changes at our Collision Reporting Center. In 2025, we introduced new requirements that encouraged more community members to self-report eligible collisions. This change reduced demand on our frontline officers, allowing them to focus on higher priority calls, while also providing a more convenient process for the public. As a result, self-reported collisions rose from 67% in 2023 to 82% in 2025. On-scene collision responses dropped by 522 incidents, which, depending on the significance of the collision, we believe resulted in an estimated reduction or saving of between anywhere from 522 to 1,566 hours of our investigators spending time at collisions. which allows them to return to operational policing duties. To sustain our current level of operations, we need to adjust or increase our 2025 budget by 8.6% to account for those cost pressures expected in 2026. Without this adjustment to our base, the service would be required to downsize, which would impact our ability to address the community needs under adequate and effective policing and trigger engagement with the Inspector General to secure approval. This is referenced in Section 53 of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Many of these cost pressures impact our budget year over year, beginning with annual increases to negotiated wage settlements. In the police sector, wages of first-class constables amongst the major police services are compared and often matched to stay competitive. Amongst the major police services for the 2026 fiscal year, wage increases are on average 3.5%. Given that salary and wages make up approximately 90% of our gross expenditure budget, a year-over-year increase of 3.5% results in a $6.8 million cost adjustment to the operating budget. The impact of additional salary and benefits to annualize the 2025 program changes is estimated to increase the base by $4.5 million. As you recall, in the 2025 operating budget mitigation strategies, a recommendation to stagger several program changes to either July or October to late year changes to reduce the overall burden on the operating budget by aligning with a more realistic hiring timeline. Next is disability management and statutory and benefit enhancements. Supporting our members is achieved in various ways, and part of this support is through our regulatory requirements to support members unable to return to active duty or require an accommodation, as well as benefits paid through WSIB. In addition to disability management, premium increases anticipated in 2026 for the Canada Pension Plan and Employment Insurance and Group Benefits contributed to a cost adjustment of $2.8 million. Other non-compensatory pressures that have a significant impact on our operating budget is software licensing and technology. This cost segment comprises 3.3% of the total gross expenditure budget. Therefore, price increases to this segment has a material impact on the base budget adjustment, as well as technological enhancements for cybersecurity, drones, NG911, and other software to support investigations, which results in an increase of $2 million over 2025. For most of this fiscal year, we have been advising the board and region of shortfalls related to third-party revenue streams, specifically related to the court security and prisoner transport grant and the police share of the OLG transfer payments that have resulted in downward adjustments to these revenue streams for the 2026 budget by $600,000. Lastly, our revised capital financing strategy based on the 2025 Capital Asset Management Plan has resulted in a projected annual increase to capital contributions of $1.1 million. This will be further explained when we present the capital portion of the presentation later this morning. These cost pressures result in $18.3 million cost adjustment or 8.6% base increase over the 2025 approved operating budget. Our base budget also includes the Police Service Board. Under the Act, municipal police services must be governed by a statutory civilian body appointed by the municipality that is responsible to ensure that the community needs for adequate and effective policing are achieved. The board's authority, rules, and duties are outlined in sections 37 through 39 of the Community Safety and Policing Act and apply to the delivery of police services across the 12 municipalities of the Niagara region. The board's 2026 operating budget is approximately $1 million, representing a 1.79% increase over 2025. And I should note that 40% of this is attributed to legal expenses. This amount reflects the resources required to support the board's legislative responsibilities and ensure effective civilian governance of policing in the Niagara region. Categorized under the umbrella of community safety, $6.4 million. Modernization and innovation, $4.2 million. For a total ask of $10.6 million under option 1. The region's bylaws prescribe that program changes must be reported as a separate increase. Therefore, for the 2026 budget cycle, the investment will cost an additional 5% under option 1. Under option 2, the service has included the deferral of the for the board's consideration. The service has included the deferral of the implementation of body-worn cameras from June 2026 to a start date of mid-year 2027. We've also recommended the deferral of the tow truck coordinator. If supported, the service would focus on the implementation of e-notes, the Connected Officer Program, and lessons learned from the automated license plate reader and in-car camera programs. This slide summarizes all the elements discussed throughout this presentation to form the 2026 proposed operating budget increase of 13.6% under option 1 or 12.8% under option 2. A further requirement of the region's operating budget process is to include a high-level forecast for 2 years. These forecasts are based on assumptions to wage increases, inflation, and continued investment to our frontline patrol and intelligence-led policing, and the right sizing of our service in the police sector. When we started this budget process, it was an exhaustive exercise. We initially identified 268 positions to meet the evolving needs of our community. Recognizing the impact on taxpayers, we have deferred some of these positions to future years. We looked at the needs of the service. We tried to be strategic in terms of identifying those that are most urgent, while being mindful of the financial pressures that are being faced by the region, coupled with the ability to hire police officers and our organization's ability to manage the speed of change. As you can see, there are significant pressures that we've identified in the coming years. You will recall that last year I was very transparent and upfront with the board and at Regional Council that we were right-sizing the organization and that I would be back here this year asking for additional resources. We have reviewed our service delivery, but you can see that there are still several positions required that highlights the risk and impact for the service, which really precludes us from recommending further deferrals. We also wanted to highlight that the budget is prepared using historical trends and forecasts, but includes a number of assumptions. The first being that 2 of our largest grants, which total 94% of grant revenues, are expiring on December 31st, 2025 and March 31st, 2026, respectively. The actual grant revenues for 2026 will not be known until these grants are renewed during the year, and therefore the assumption that funding will remain at historical levels has been reflected in the budget. The second is that OLG funding received from the City of Niagara Falls is not established until the end of each quarter. Historically, this budget has been set at a maximum 4.2 million. However, in 2025 and 2026, we have made a downward adjustment to reflect the actual revenue dollars received over the past 3 years. Therefore, this assumption has reduced our revenue budget by $300,000. It is also important to note that a number of budget items like investigative overtime are highly dependent on the calls for service, types of calls, and complexity of the calls received each year. Estimates are prepared based on historical trends and current forecasts, but may vary as the year progresses. Inflationary increases for some cost segments are estimated based on actual price patterns, which could shift significantly in 2026. Recognizing budget pressures, the service implemented a number of mitigation strategies to reduce the cost pressures on the 2026 budget. 10 of the 21 program changes will be implemented through the year to align with actual hiring timelines, resulting in a gapping saving of $5.5 million in 2026. 3 program changes were funded by repurposing 5 existing positions, and this reinvestment strategy resulted in a savings of $1 million. 2 program changes will be funded by third-party revenue streams, reducing the burden on the general levy by $300,000. And just for verification, that is the CAD GIS analyst and the tactical flight officers being funded by the province. All non-discretionary expenditures, including staff development, office supplies, consulting, administrative travel, and meals, were all held to 2025 budget amount or reduced wherever possible. Recognizing the board's responsibility to provide public safety to meet the community needs under adequate and effective policing, the service has provided the board with 2 options for the proposed 2026 operating budget. Option 1 includes an 8.6% increase to the base to adjust the current operating needs to 2026 inflationary costs, inclusive of an investment for capital asset management and further enhancements to service delivery in the proposed program changes, resulting in an investment of 5% for an overall increase of 13.6% over the approved 2025 budget. Option 2 considers similar base and capital funding increases. However, under new program change investment, considers the deferral of 2 programs, body-worn cameras and tow truck coordinators, which reduces the program changes by 0.8%, thereby resulting in an overall increase of 12.8% over the approved 2025 operating budget. I recognize that together we have made significant strides, strengthening our capacity and aligning our staffing to better serve the community. We have seen in the past how election cycles can influence short-term thinking rather than supporting a more strategic long-term vision that also allows us to align priorities with the evolving needs of the community. As we look to the future, there are several items that we continue to monitor. At this time, we do not have a master facility plan. We are actively in consultations to develop this, and we'll be back before you in the coming months as we examine our current facilities and the future of our service. Looking forward, you can anticipate continued investment in the front line and additional engagement with the community as we focus on being intelligence-led, addressing prolific offenders, high-risk offenders, and high-crime areas. We will also continue to examine other areas, given the emerging pressures, expectations, and adequacy standards, and our commitment to ensure public safety. There will also be continued efforts to right-size civilian staff as we move from organic growth to trying to strategically build and properly support our service and operations. Additionally, we continue to examine high-risk areas to ensure that the coverage is adequate and effective, ensuring compliance with the Community Safety and Policing Act, therefore mitigating risk and exposure for the service and the board. All of the necessary investments presented to you today are in the context of the fact that policing in the 21st century has become complex. Police services, like other public institutions, constantly face misinformation and disinformation, especially on social media and the internet. The very geographic location of the Niagara region and the international border crossings identify the region as a highly sought-after hub for criminals to conduct drug trafficking and criminal activity. Our service has been involved with large-scale international organized crime drug investigations for over a decade, all having at minimum 1 year of operational investigative time. It is important to note that the service took the lead role in many of these transnational investigations, while also working collaboratively with our international partners. Additionally, social divides and international conflicts are often connected, and together they can lead to more tensions in our communities. Our members are increasingly called upon to ensure public safety during demonstrations and protests and assume carriage of the criminal investigations that may flow from them. In the national context, you've heard me say it before, crime knows no boundaries. Recently, we hosted a joint news conference to announce the results of Project Road King, a large-scale investigation. It was held in this room. A large-scale investigation into organized crime conducted in partnership with the RCMP Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit and other Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario partners. This investigation began in August 2024 after intelligence gathered by our Major Drugs and Gang Unit pointed to a drug trafficking operation with connections here in Niagara. As the work unfolded, it became clear that the activity was part of a broader network operating across multiple jurisdictions. In the end, the results were significant. More than 38 stolen vehicles were recovered with an estimated value of over $3 million. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in drugs, inclusive of cocaine, MDA, methamphetamine, were removed from our streets, and 30 people were arrested, facing over 200 charges. This is another example of how local crime with national and even international connections is becoming increasingly common. In August, we announced the results of a complex and comprehensive 8-month investigation into allegations of historical child sexual assault. Due to the magnitude and complexity of the investigation, and a special investigative team was assembled, drawing on resources from across the service. As a result of that investigation, over 100 criminal charges were laid against a man from Niagara for offenses that occurred between 1991 and 2000 and 2024. The offenses involved 16 victims, ranging in age from 8 to 17 at the time, and included instances where the accused allegedly crossed the border into the United States to commit these offenses. These cases are deeply troubling and speak to the dedication and persistence of our investigators who work tirelessly to bring justice for victims and accountability for offenders, no matter how much time has passed or where the offense takes place. Locally, you are well aware of the ongoing pressures and increased training requirements under the Community Safety and Policing Act, which requires our officers to complete over 85 hours of additional frontline training, with about 25 of those hours completed annually to maintain certification, ultimately reducing the amount of time that these officers have on the road, keeping our community safe. Finally, we are seeing criminal activities becoming increasingly sophisticated. As I just referenced, often crossing national and international borders, and criminals are leveraging advanced technologies to carry out their plans. I am aware that at 11 o'clock this morning, there is a scheduled press conference taking place in the GTA where the Prime Minister is announcing a significant investment in federal policing with the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We have seen significant investments from the province, the Premier and Solicitor General in public safety. And this budget submission represents our best efforts to provide the board with the ability to provide adequate and effective policing for the citizens that we serve and to comply with the legislation. That concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it over to the board to ask questions, or Chair, if we can take a break and then I can answer questions, whatever you prefer.
I was going to suggest, instead of standing for another hour, hour and a half, you have a seat and we'll ask questions about this portion of the budget before we move on to the next item.
Okay, thank you.
Unless somebody... Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Are there any questions? Member Steele?
Thanks, Chair, and Chief, great job with staff and senior staff putting this together, and quite frankly, in a number of areas, thinking outside the box to get where we are today. I do have a number of questions here. The reduction in revenue with regards to provincial funding, the grant of around $260,000 for court security and prisoner transport. So this is an ending to that grant, or is it reflective on our decreased costs? Is this a revenue, or is this actually $260,000 that we're just no longer going to get?
Thank you for your question, through you, Chair. I will answer the question, and then, if with your permission, I'll invite Director Rillo to potentially top up on what I'm about to say. My understanding is that there is a pool of money for the province to distribute to police agencies on this grant. That pool is set, and that the amount that we received decreased last year for 2025. So our revenue that we receive in that grant was reduced. Does that answer your question?
So what we received for the current year is $260,000 less than what we received in 2024. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and I'll just invite Director Rillo to confirm the exact number.
Yeah, it's 259 and change, but
Okay, so,
basically 260.
so through to the chair, that reduction is the reduction that we're putting in between what we had put into the 2025 budget, which was 6.9 million. We reduced that for 2026 to 6.6. So that's that $300,000 reduction. And that comes from the fact that we do not know when we will be, what we're receiving for the 2026 CSPT grant. We don't know that until January of 2026. So for the purposes of the 2026 budget, we typically use the last 2 years as an average for the following budget. So for example, in 2024, we received $7 million. And so because of that, we ended up assuming that our 2025 CSPT budget would be about 6.9 million. And what was announced was 6.2. So for the 2026 budget, we take into consideration the fact that in 1 year we received 7 million, another year we received 6.2. We didn't want to reduce the 2026 right down to 6.2 because that would have been a $700,000 reduction. So we just brought it down to a 2-year average. So the 2026 budget is for that grant is set at 6.6. We won't know until January, end of January, early February, what we'll actually be receiving.
Okay, so the 260 could be left in for all we know. We just don't know that yet.
It would assume that next year's budget, next year's grant could come in at 6.9. The original budget planning document, we actually reduced it by 700,000, which is what we're actually seeing in our 2025 actuals. So to bring that back up, yes, you could bring that back up to 6.9. We'd bring in revenue of an extra 300,000. The risk to that is that, you know, based on the fact that we received 6.2 this year, we would be assuming that we could get.
Yeah, and I understand all
again.
that, and I think
Yeah.
that is prudent planning. So I just want to get context here for those that are watching, that we need to be prudent on this, where it could come in the same or it could be reduced. We're not sure. I
That's
just wanted to
correct.
make sure that it wasn't a revenue neutral, where it was, you know, our costs were less in this department than what they were last year, so that's fine there. On the fuel side of things, with the reduction in cost of fuel, taxes being reduced over the last 8 months or so, that is reflected in this budget with regards to that we're paying less for fuel today than we were a year ago?
So through to the chair, we left, for the 2026 budget, we left the fuel at last year's average, which is about $1.59 at the pump. We are receiving a surplus in the 2025 actuals. We've got a bit of a $200,000 savings at the end of June. We elected to keep next year's 2026 fuel budget at the same, which is about $2 million, mainly because we try to neutralize the fluctuations in that particular line. We try to set it at about a 10-year average. But for the board's understanding, we did not reduce the fuel budget. We're keeping it at the $2 million because we don't want to make those changes to like the changes that are occurring on fuel. We're trying to like hold it to a certain percentage so it doesn't affect our budget. What we've seen in the past when it comes to the fuel is we react to the changes in fuel and our budget goes up 200,000, down 200,000. So we're trying to keep it at a relatively stable position and then work within the fluctuations as they occur. But for the board's knowledge, we are experiencing savings at this time, but next year, the budget has been set with an average of about $1.60, $1.59.
So we group by our fuel, correct? Where we're getting a better rate than what I would pay at the pump, correct?
That's correct.
That just seems, you know, you're leaving it up around $1.60, where now it's anywhere from $1.20 to $1.27 a liter at the pump. So obviously with our group benefit of our way we buy it, it's gonna be even less than that. The government's reduced the carbon tax on gasoline. I just, you know, then you're saying it at a 6-month position, we're around 250,000 in savings. If you take that over the year, that's almost $500,000.
Yes,
Or more than $500,000. So,
correct.
you know, like, this isn't an easy budget. And this is, you know, it may sound small, but everything counts. And I know with the three of us that go back to the region, what they're gonna tell us with this budget. I'll guarantee you this budget's coming back here. I'll tell you right now. So if we can slice as much as we can today with regards to this budget, I think it's the best. So I think we need to go back and look at the way our fuel is priced out. Because fuel has gone down dramatically based on just the taxes being taken off. So if we can really look at that, you know, as I said, it's, you know, around $500,000 a year, what projected savings is gonna be from 2024. So I think we need to do that. Through you, Chair, to the Chief, with regards to, I have no issue with the majority of the increase in bodies with regards to the different departments you talked about. I'll agree to those. I have no issues with those. And I think we've talked about that for a number of years with a lot of these departments and how things are changing and what we see across, not just Niagara, but across Canada. But on the 33 new frontline officers, does it have to be 33 this year? Can we get away with less and kind of break that up and put it over? And I know the full cost isn't in the 2026 budget, because by the time we hire, they go to the police college, they come back, it's not a full year of cost in 2026. It'll hit us in 27. But can we reduce somehow the 33 down to a reasonable number as we move forward and kind of spread that out over the next number of years? Again, it's not an easy budget year. And I'm not talking just about this budget. I'm talking about the entire regional budget, our water, wastewater budget that's coming up. You know, anywhere that we can move things around so that we can, you know, be reasonable here. We know we're not going to be 3.5%. I think all of us at this table know that the 3.5 that the region sent to us is not attainable. That's just in our wage increase. We can't change that. So, but other ways to get this down a point or 2 points with regards to it going back to the region, I think it'll help us. Because once they send it back, I mean, if we do as many program changes here when it goes forward, it's better for the three of us to argue at the region with regards to, you know, what we need to come back and what we need to change. So that's where I'm going with this. I do like option 2. I am not in favor of looking after tow truck operators. That's not our bailiwick. It was taken away from us years ago. We should not be getting back into that. It's $350,000. I'd rather see that go into hiring more specialty department people than looking after something that we're not even mandated to look after, and we're seeing that our grants coming down from the province may go down. So to put $350,000, I'm dead against that. The body-worn cameras, as much as the presentations we've had here, I think it's going to be important. Again, nice to have in 2026, but I think if we delay that, it can help us now. Maybe it's moving money around. Maybe it's even just taking parts of that money this year, breaking it up over a few years, putting it into reserve so that when we go full steam ahead with body-worn cameras, that we actually have a reserve built up for that, that we can move that forward. So that's where I'm going with this right now. So, but on the boots on the ground, can you maybe give us some insight as far as, can we get away with less? I don't know what that exact number was. I was using the number 20 based on the numbers here and doing extrapolation, and it can help us, but is that something that we can look at?
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair. The analysis of the data suggests 33 this year and 33 next year, and it was 33 last year, based on the shift relief factor. The shift relief factor is a number that's created based on the needs, annual leave, sick time, training, court. We do an evidence-based analysis to determine how many police officers we need to actually have one police officer at work. And the number is 1.59. So in order to have one person here every shift, we actually need 1.59 people. In terms of our current situation and our go-forward situation, and I know that you appreciate that every meeting we go to, we hear that, you know, we want to see more boots on the ground. We oftentimes are struggling to meet our contractual obligations within the collective agreement with our current establishment, our authorized establishment, when you factor in our actual number of people that are working. This board is aware that presumptive PTSD, the environment that our officers are working in is more complex than it's ever been. Sadly, and I don't mean to use an analogy, but you know, we find ourselves where we don't have a backup team. Like, we're not like a sports team where we can call the minor leagues or the reinforcements from the stands. All we have is what we have. So we have people that are off sick, you know, we have people that are in the penalty box, we have pressures. Our ability to meet our contractual obligations and to continue to provide kind of a community-centric, stratified police response are heavily reliant on our first responders. So that number, I think, is a minimum. To be quite honest, if we've put significant pressure on the organization this year. Change management with our increase, significant pressure on our recruiting unit. If I thought that we could hire more qualified people more quickly and integrate them into the organization, I'm acutely aware to the costs, but I'm also acutely aware of our responsibilities to provide adequate and effective policing. So I would be very, every position's important, but the front line is vital. I'm aware of the pressures that we bring to the region with our budget and the stewardship of public monies, but our responsibility for public safety to me is paramount. And that area in particular, with respect, I'd be very concerned about further placing additional pressures on our first responders.
Great, thanks, that's good for now.
Chair Kyokyo?
Thank you, Chair. I'm on the same page as Member Steele, because it is a difficult year. Just a couple questions first in regards to the Community Act that came in place last year, and I believe it was 5% that we had to, more or less, for last year's budget, that we had to approve, right, to meet the regulations. Is that correct? Just an update on that.
So thank you for your question. I think, if I understand you correctly, I believe Member Yip asked for an assessment of the costs associated with the Community Safety and Policing Act with implementing the act. So last year, I believe our number was $6 million to comply. But what became very clear to me and our team when we went through the process of preparing for the region's presentation, where they gave us the template to kind of tease out what's mandated and what's not mandated, that we've transitioned from trying to close the gap to comply with the CSPA to now just sustaining that. So everything that we do really is, as we work through it, tied to adequate and effective policing. And by that, what I mean is I think it would have been reasonable to think, well, is HR adequate and effective policing, or is finance adequate and effective policing? But as we worked through that, we came to realize that, well, to get somebody to have boots on the ground, the board needs to hire people. So by extension, it is part of adequate and effective policing. And to make sure that the boots on the ground are properly compensated, you need a finance section. So that once we work through all that, we transitioned from, I think last year, thinking, okay, this is directly, and the biggest, most remarkable increase last year tied to it was significant investment we had to make in training. Thankfully, we had been successful the year before in putting some money in reserves that we could pull out to increase the size of our training unit. But now sadly, that's just part of business now. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's where I was getting at. I wanted to see if there was any numbers this year that were committed to because of the CSPA. But you mentioned it's kind of hard to look at that as we're moving forward. But it is there, right? That we're committed to the act with a lot of what's going on. Just in saying that, I again, being a difficult year, I'm with Member Steele. I'm looking more at option 2. I know body worn cameras. We did a lot of work on that. I know the staff have, and it is it is quite costly at this time. I'm looking at 1.4 plus a staff sergeant, another 217,000. I'd like to see that maybe. I know a lot of people wanted to see it, but I think maybe because of what we're looking at this year, they wanted us to come down 3.5, which it ain't going to happen. But I think maybe hold off for another year on that, and same with the tow truck business. We still don't know where we stand for that, and it's hard to put that as an item, a budget item here today to approve or even look at. So I'm still looking at all the positions, and I know Member Still stated about the 33 in the frontline constables. I think that's important, and talking to the people, they want to see, as you stated, want to see more officers out there. Whether 33 is the right number, I think it is important that we do put more constables on the road. However, I'm looking at the other positions and from each program. I'm thinking that maybe we can still look at that, and I know you hate the word phase in, but maybe phase in within the next 2 or 3 years to see if it's possible, rather than, I'm looking at Central Holden right now, with 5 new positions. If we can start off less than that, or still looking at some of these departments where we can basically phase in, rather than boom, we're gonna get 5 officers for here, 4 for modified work unit, so less than that amount, so we can bring this dollar amount down. I just like to see more of that. I won't approve what we see right there, even though I think, yes, it's deserving, but again, I know you hate the word phase in, but maybe phase it in within a year or two, rather than just doing it all at once in some of these departments. But I think it's important to put the constables, first class constables on the road. 33, I think, to me, is sufficient, because from what I'm hearing from the public, they want to see the people out on the streets, doing their job, keeping our communities safe. So that's just my input for now. So I'll yield the floor to other members.
Or to the chair. Before I move to Member Lawson, Chief, can we just get some clarification on the CSPA, the budget amount increase? I have in my notes, thanks to Member Steele for asking and me going back, that the CSPA led to an increase of $10,323,969, or 5.7%. I think Chair Kiokio said $6 million. Can you clarify?
No, I didn't say 6.
I think I may have said that. I was
Okay.
thinking 6, it's probably percent that you're correct.
Thank you. Member Lawson?
Thank you for the presentation. I have a number of questions through you, Chair. So my first question is for the request for the new staff members, both sworn and civilian. Does that include all respective costs, including uniforms, training, computers, licenses, furniture, fixtures, any new vehicles?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, it does.
Thank you. My next question would be, we just attended an evidence-based policing conference this past weekend, and a number of board members and myself. One of the things that we heard about was for frontline visibility, that was in some testing that they have done, is things like wearing bright-colored vests, seeing the vehicles painted in the baton, such as in the UK, to help with the frontline visibility. Is that something that has been considered instead of necessarily increasing the frontline complement, which I understand that it would potentially be the same cost up front. However, once you have the vehicle painted or the vests purchased, that's a way that frontline visibility has been seen.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I can confirm that we are in the throes of marking up a vehicle with high visibility decals. We've had a presentation to our executive leadership team within the last 2 weeks, and we are working through that as a pilot to assess the visibility for the reasons that you reference.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, another question. So I look at slides 40 and 41, which is the 2026 operating budget and forecast with the 27 and 28 included in both of those. And we see that, so for example, 85 new positions this year is the request with some of the changes that are proposed with option 2. But then we'd be looking at 2027 and 2028 as basically the same, the equivalent amount over the next 2 years as well, once you average them over the two. So I think the concern would be if we're looking at, if we had a 13% increase last year, 13% approximately increase this year, we'd be looking at, I understand it says 14.7 and 9.1, but again, averaging 13% each year. Over 4 years, we'd be looking at a 50% increase in our budget overall, which I think is a big concern for the, I know as a taxpayer, I know my term's almost up, but I'm also going to be, I am a taxpayer, and everybody else is taxpayers here, but I think that would be something that I'd be concerned about, or not that I would be concerned about, I am concerned about as a taxpayer. My question through the chair is, what other options do we have for using the civilian complement in a different way? And I'm going to reference, you did use the example, I think it was the holding, central holding, where it didn't work out for having a civilian, and I understand and I appreciate the fact that there are opportunities like that. But I think there's I can't remember, I think it was digital evidence management unit, for example, where there's a request for a staff sergeant overseeing civilian positions. Is that an opportunity where we could look at having a civilian person being the management of civilian positions to help keep the costs down as one option? I guess I'll stop there for the first question.
Thank you. I'll try my best to address I think a couple of points that you identified in your the lead up to your question. The first is the value of introducing civilians into the workforce where we can. And it may not be really obvious, but we have been trying to integrate them in. You think about integrating the civilian into drones, our analysts moving away from having police officers do that. Digital evidence management is, for the most part, all civilians. Our strategic planning unit, Dr. Perez, Ronnie Ade, we're really leaning into subject matter experts that are not police officers. With respect to the staff sergeant, we've talked a lot about this program change. We anticipated questions about this, and I had a lot of questions, and Deputy Chief Greco had a lot of questions about this. The staff sergeant, we feel, really is imperative because we're managing evidence. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're preserving the integrity of the investigations. That's not to say that if somebody comes in and with the passage of time, we feel that the organization is safe and the board is safe, that we fully embrace civilianization in that role. Another area that I think you will see more civilians in with the passage of time is in our forensics unit, examination of crime scenes and whatnot. There are some agencies that are now starting to direct entry in, but the risk there is you're gathering evidence, you're going to court, and you need that experience to provide meaningful evidence. Or one, you create a bad case, or even worse, you create bad case law that compromises investigations and prosecutions across the country. So all that to say, we are looking at how civilians can be introduced into the organization. You've seen even our executive leadership team in the last year, we've got our director of finance and director of HR sitting at the table with our most senior leaders now.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Another question. So you said that it's 1.59 officers for each. What is the civilian equivalent?
I'm not aware of us doing that analysis. I hate to speculate, but I would not think it would be as high because of sick time. Yeah, and we have temporary employees who come in and support civilians where, as I referenced earlier, we don't have police officers in the stands or in the minors to bring in.
Perfect, thank you. So that would be my point to both Member Steele and Chair Kiokio's points, is that if there's opportunities to either A, phase in people, or B, to reassess some of the positions, and I understand, I just use Central Holding as the example, there could be other opportunities in there where is it an opportunity to take a look at civilianizing, plus it'll also keep your civilian complement engaged and realize that there's opportunities for advancement through the organization. Always looking out for the civilians as well as our sworn officers. I did have one other question, sorry. I just lost where my question is. Operational efficiencies, like records check. So kind of along the lines of the questions before from the evidence-based policing conference with the uniforms and the vehicles, is there other opportunities that we can look at from an operational perspective of investing, whether it's in our technology itself? So I understand body-worn cameras is one thing, but is there opportunities with our current complement of software that we already have that we can actually, if we bring in people to figure out how to make it more efficient, such as the example that where you're using shared services with the fire services in St. Catharines. Are there other opportunities that we should be considering right now?
Thank you for your question through your chair. Yes, there are. In part, that's why we're advancing the recommendation for a business analyst to work with Dr. Perez. Off the top of my mind, things that we are looking at are the use of artificial intelligence. We have a presentation tomorrow with Rubicon, which is a vendor to discuss online reporting and our ability to try to find efficiencies in how we're responding to lower priority calls. So we are continuing to try to find efficiencies with the ultimate goal of reducing the pressures on the front line. If we can reduce the pressures on the front line, then we can reduce the request down the road for more resources. So I think that's where you're going. Yes.
Thank you for that. And then just one last comment. I agree with both Member Steele and Chair Kiokio on the tow truck management. I don't think it's something that we should be getting into, so I'd like to see that removed. And I also agree with the body-worn cameras that we should phase those in over time because I think we have enough on our plate as it is, including some significant budget increases for the next couple of years. And our collective agreement is up next year, which means that we're into bargaining as well. So I'm in favor of finding any reductions where we can.
Thank you, Member Lawson. Member Gibson?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Excellent work by everybody making this presentation. Thank you for that. I guess I look at it and go 33 new officers this year, 33 new officers next year. How realistic is that given the recruiting market these days?
Thank you for your question. One of the things that we contemplated last year, because with attrition, we thought we would need to hire 71 people to be able to hire the people that the board supported hiring and deal with the people that are retiring. I can tell you that we're at 69 right now, and we've got 15 that just completed training at the Ontario Police College that are now in what we call OPC here at our training unit. And we have 22 people at the Ontario OPC, is the acronym for Ontario Police College, there now. So our human resources unit, our recruiting unit, have done an outstanding job of hiring people. And we've also been the beneficiary of members from other services that are looking to come to Niagara. So we have been able to hit our targets, and they're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you. My point there was simply that if we were not able to achieve our 33, to Chair Kiokio's point, it would be an excellent way to if we're going to be short, then to phase in some positions as we get the bodies, which would help save us some dollars. But it looks like we're on track to be able to fulfill our full requirement of 33 officers. So, okay, and I'm also I'm in favor of option 2. We don't need the tow truck business at all here, and body-worn cameras, I think they're an excellent asset to us, but given the budget atmosphere that we're in, probably need to wait a little bit for that. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Gibson. Any other questions? Thank you. So it looks like to me then, we're going to be looking to move option 2. So the motion, again, moved by Member Gibson and seconded by Vice Chair Capasavanu, being that the board receive the report and approve one of the following proposed options, being option 2, the proposed 2026 operating budget for the service and board, resulting in a total net expenditure budget before indirect allocations of $239,561,511, or 12.8% increase over 2025 approved budget, and further that the consolidated budget of the service and board be submitted to Regional Council for approval. I'm going to ask again if there are any questions.
Well, no, I think it should still go back to staff now. Seeing that there is some direction from council, or from members here stating that we don't like to see if some of these positions can be phased in within the next 2 or 3 years, or looked at further before we decide to send it to council, to regional council. I think it should be done here, like members still said. Either we do it here, or it's going to come back from council to do the same process. So I think we do our best now to do it here, and see if the chief can go back to the staff and look at to see what, you know, I use some as an example as. Anyways, that they go back and see if they can phase in some of these positions. I think it's been spoken about from several members here, so I think that might have to be a direction. I don't know if it's an amendment that it goes back to staff to see if some of these positions can be phased in or relooked at before we move forward to the council, regional council.
Thank you, Chair Kiokio. Member Gibson?
Yeah, I look at it possibly another way. If you send it forward as is, we know it's gonna come back. They're gonna look at it, and the 13-point-something% option 1 or the 12.8 option 2, no matter what, it's gonna come back to us. So to pair now, we may be removing things that we can pair when it comes back from the region, which we can say, well, we've done this, we've taken this out, we've taken this out. So if we do it now, then it's still going to come back to us, and then we will have less items that we can remove. It's a game of optics, but.
Thank you, Member Gibson. So yeah, and this was what I was hearing. I was hearing questions, but no direction to the chief or staff to make those changes. And to Member Gibson's point, I think regardless of what we do here today, it's coming back to us anyway. So that was my thinking, was we pass one of these options, and then when it comes back with the feedback that's been given today, in addition to the feedback that comes from Regional Council, whatever changes are made. Chair Kiokio?
Chair, I understand where you're going, but I think we've been put on this board to do a job, and I'm kind of leaving that regional piece out of it right now when I'm speaking. So I'm here as a board member to say, let's get it done now, so that way when it goes to council, you know, we've done our job here at this level, and if they want to bring it back, then I don't like playing that game. We've been put on this board now to make decisions here now, not wait for council to make it for us. So that's the way I look at it. So I like to see it go back. I'll make the amendment. If I have a seconder, I do, but I just see it as, I know where Member Gibson's going, but we've been put on this board to do a job, and I want to do it now. I don't want my colleagues on council to say, well, why didn't you do it when you're at that meeting? Why are you leaving it for us to do? And I don't want to be that person to be able to answer that. I want to answer and say we did our best here today. We've been here since 9:30. Why? Let's deal with it now and get it over with, and then, you know, present council with a budget that, hey, we did everything we can at this level for you. We're your representative on the board. This is what we did. I don't want to go back to council and say, you know, you make the decision. Anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Thank
So
you,
I will
Chair.
make an amendment if I have a seconder.
Thank you, Chair Kiokio. Member Lawson?
I was going to actually say the same thing, so I will second the amendment.
Okay, and so The amendment being that the board receive the report and send it back to staff to incorporate feedback from the board?
To look at a phase-in,
Well, there were a number of things that
yeah,
were,
that,
so I'm just a blanket
Yeah.
feedback. Is that what our motion would be?
like, I don't want to put a number on there.
No, I'm not putting a number, I'm
No,
saying
that's
incorporating the
just-
feedback, so I'm just
yeah.
trying to get,
I just have the motion listed, if it's acceptable, that the proposed 2026 operating budget be referred back to the chief of police for further consideration and report back to the police board. And if you want to attach a timeline for a board meeting, I think that'd be helpful.
I think we have to attach a timeline, given that I think it's November is it November 6th? Yeah, I'm trying to find. November 27th is Budget Review Committee of the whole agencies, boards, and commissions, and Niagara Transit. Oh, yeah, it's way too late. Oh, yeah, I'm just talking about when it goes to the region. So I think we have to come back to next week's budget meeting. Chief and deputies, do you have enough information from the feedback that was given to make the changes?
Thank you, Chair. I think we do. I heard loud and clear, and I made note, I'll just confirm the notes I made. I heard reference to the gas. I heard reference to our central holding. I heard reference to our body worn cameras. I heard reference to our tow truck management. And I would say that I'd like to give the board this comfort that adequate and effective policing is a shared responsibility, and my responsibility is to provide the best advice I can for the board. And in offering the deferral option, I'm satisfied that we would still be moving in the right direction with respect to adequate and effective policing, and the board would be fulfilling its obligations in that capacity.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Member Steele?
So I agree with this, but I'd really like us to start with option two, that we take those items out. I think what I've heard around the table is the majority wants to do that, so that there's kind of a base that they're starting with, that they don't have to worry about body worn cameras or the tow truck. Those are taken out of the budget, so we know that. So now we have a number we're starting at, take the direction of what members have given you here today, and then come back to us with options, and then we can go further. But I'd like to really make sure that they have a number that we're actually starting at today, and then to whittle it down further, if that's okay with the movers.
Yeah, that's fine by me. And I used, just to elaborate on, I used the central holding as one, but please look at the whole budget, not just central holding, if there's other areas as well, okay?
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. So the motion then is that the proposed operating budget, beginning with option two, be referred back to the chief. All those in favor? Thank you, that carries. Before we move on to the next item, I'm going to call a 7-minute recess. We're going to start again at noon. Thank you.
Okay, up until 3, I've got the mayor and Hopa coming in from Mayor Sault Ste. Marie. And Hopa's, we're taking on a big tour, so we've got him here. Yeah, and then I've got a special meeting of council for this whole water contract, AK, BMI and all that stuff. So, I appreciate it, yeah, Tuesdays. Okay. All right, well, it's good to get you talking, thank you. Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. So we'll move on to item 5.2, Capital Project Closeout Report for the year 2025. Moved by Member Lawson, seconded by Member McKendrick, that the board approve the closure of the identified completed capital projects and the transfer of funds to the Police Capital Levy Reserve in the amount of $56,114.89. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Moving on to item 5.3, moved by Member Steele, seconded by Chair Kiokio, that subject to approval by Regional Council of the Consolidated Capital Budget, the board receives the 2026 Capital Budget and Forecast Report and approves one of the options that's provided to us. Before we discuss those further, I'll again call on Chief Forty for the proposed capital budget portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The capital budget process focuses on developing a long-term asset management strategy, not only to replace existing assets, but also to align our capital needs with our future vision of our service. Essentially focusing on the here and now while also being alive and planning in a fiscally responsible manner for the future. It is important to stress that this annual process gives us an opportunity to review our previous forecast for future capital needs against the continuing changing horizon and expectations on policing. This process began in February of this year when program managers reviewed their inventory to identify assets that are at or nearing end of life and are therefore scheduled for replacement. In addition to asset replacement, program managers, along with our executive lead, consider assets that are necessary to support and execute strategic initiatives. This year, 38 projects were submitted for consideration, totaling $12.1 million. All projects were evaluated using the region's Capital Asset Management Resource Assessment tool. It's known by the acronym of CAMRA. The acronym, not the acronym, that's acronym. The acronym of CAMRA, which critically evaluates the asset based on a standardized set of criteria. The fundamental criteria of the CAMRA tool considers the asset's current condition, probability of failure, and its risk to primary operations in the event of failure. The CAMRA tool has been used region-wide to assess the condition of assets slated for replacement through a common scoring matrix. The service committed to follow the same process during our capital asset review. In addition to the CAMRA tool, the executive leadership team considered other factors such as operational need and strategic priorities for new capital asset projects and the likely impact on risk and liability, along with public and member safety for the replacement of assets. The projects were analyzed by the service's executive leadership team, inclusive of the deputy chiefs, at great length until the final list of 16 were identified as priority for 2026 at a total cost of 7.1. So in other words, we reduced it from 38 to 16. The final total has increased by 1.5 million from our 2025 capital budget forecast for the 2026 year, which was previously $6.2 million. The bar chart on the left of this slide breaks down the total capital projects by assets to replace and new assets related to service improvements. As the chart illustrates for this year, Approximately 74% of our projects fall within the asset replacement category, while 26% is for new capital related to service improvements. The bar chart on the right side illustrates the funding sources used to finance the 2026 capital projects, where 73% is from police capital and vehicle reserve funds. The remaining 27% is funded from the region capital reserve fund. As mentioned, we went through a lengthy evaluation process to reduce the capital projects submitted to the final list, which exceeded funds available from our capital reserve funds of $2.1 million. It became apparent that we would need to seek alternative funding sources to finance all projects, and after consultation with the region and submission through the camera process, 2 capital projects were able to be funded through the region's capital reserve fund. As previously noted, 74% of this year's capital request represents existing assets in need of replacement. The assets summarized in this chart were identified as assets that had scored highest with respect to the risk of asset failure, deemed an essential asset to support. For vehicles, the capital request of $1.7 million was funded from our vehicle reserve fund. The vehicle replacement program takes into consideration the age of the vehicle, odometer readings, overall condition, and intended projected applications of the asset to ensure overall safety and effective guardianship of the asset. By virtue of their duties, patrol vehicles are operated in harsh conditions, often 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As an emergency service, vehicle reliability and availability are important factors and must be ensured through appropriate vehicle replacement. In addition to the patrol vehicles, 2 prisoner vans that are aged 9 and 14 years, both with mileage in excess of 200,000 kilometers, are scheduled for replacement in 2026, all totaling $1.7 million. For IT and network infrastructure, the capital request is $3.6 million, funded from 2 sources. Police and Region Capital Reserve Fund. This represents the annual provision in our capital budget for IT and network lifecycle equipment replacement and upgrades to support continuity of service. The P25 Public Safety Voice Radio System provides radio communication capabilities to over 2,000 users in the region, including the NRPS, CBSA, Parks Police, as well as 7 fire services. The P25 system was completed in 2016 and as such has components at the end of their useful life. Of the 510 service radios, the remaining 340 will be replaced over the next 2 years, with 200 in 2026 and 140 in 2027. Mobile data terminals are the tablets and keyboards installed in patrol vehicles, providing officers with real-time data. They are scheduled for replacement this year to accommodate a Windows 11 platform, as the current mobile data terminals are not compatible. The remaining assets to replace include CEW annual replacement. That's our taser, that's the CEW. A diver air support control panel, tactical equipment such as the replacement of an explosive suit, a remote tactical search camera, and a forensic laser used to collect crime scene evidence. These items were slated for replacement as they have reached the end of their useful life. In addition to the replacement of infrastructure assets, this year's budget also includes investment in new technology. Starting with the Air Support Unit, which launched in 2025 under the leadership of Staff Sergeant Inch. This unit will provide aerial support in matters related to public safety, search and rescue, as well as its use in investigations. This is a unit that requires specialized equipment, and for the 2026 capital budget, the request is to fund a counter-drone system for airspace monitoring. This system enables real-time detection and controlled mitigation of drone threats in public spaces from drone-related incidents. This request also includes handheld cameras and the purchase of additional drones. This year, the service conducted a community engagement safety survey regarding the implementation of body-worn cameras. The responses were overwhelmingly favorable to promote trust and officer safety. Therefore, the capital portion of the body-worn camera would cost $951,000 and was included in option 1 of the capital budget recommendation and online with the recommendations. Option 2 would therefore result in a deferral of this capital request to 2027. Findings from the coroner inquest to the death of a person in custody recommended the installment of cell monitoring biometric sensors that would monitor the vital signs of persons in custody as additional support to the regular physical cell checks that's conducted by our special constables. This technology acts as an early warning system to alert staff to potential medical issues and to allow life-saving measures to be put in place. The service is recommending to purchase 22 units for $123,000 in 2026 and to purchase another 21 units as a phased-in approach for implementation in 2027. Under the Act, the service is required to provide mental health training to all sworn members. The service is planning to purchase 4 virtual reality headsets, including controllers and base stations to simulate and evaluate response to scenarios involving a person's in crisis and in training environment. This tool is considered a feasible and cost-effective delivery method to ensure all members complete this mandatory training in a timely manner. The long-term capital funding strategy will increase our operating budget capital contributions by $1.1 million per year to reach $10.4 million by 2031. This strategy is aligned with the region capital financing strategy to reduce our dependency on debt funding to finance asset replacement. The increased capital funding requirements takes into account the 9-year capital forecast and our expected future funding requirements for asset replacement. Included in the board report as on Appendix 4 is a detailed listing of proposed capital projects for the years of 2027 to 2035, including planned facility upgrades forecasted for 2027. All of the necessary that concludes my presentation on the capital budget. And I invite any questions that the board might have for myself or Director Grillo.
Thank you, Chief. If you want to have a seat while we figure out who has questions. Are there any questions? Member Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Chief. Chief, on the air support equipment, which is shown as new as opposed to replace at a $862,400 price tag, can you give me a good explanation of exactly what all that is?
Thank you for your question, through you, Chair. That is equipment for our what I call our drone unit. As you know, as this board knows, we invested in the creation of that unit last year. Thankfully, we had made that investment in advance of the changing national, international security posture with the United States. So this is this is technology used to support that unit, and I don't want to jinx us or misstep, but the board would be aware that the monies for the helicopter were received through the province in their initial Treasury Board submission. I am aware that a second Treasury Board submission has been advanced, and we have had discussions with the Solicitor General's office about this sort of technology being captured within that funding envelope. But we had to bring it here because we don't have confirmation from the province at this time.
Okay, so I was thinking totally separate, or whole totally different answer. Okay. So that could be funded through the province. Could be, we don't know, but, so that'll be coming to us, so that'll help as we go down the road. The federal announcement that's going to be made today, or was made, I think, at 11 a.m., on our cross-border, our border initiatives by the federal government. Do we foresee funding coming down to local police forces for that, or only federal police forces?
My understanding, and I've been in this room for the meeting, was that the funding announcement by the Prime Minister was initially going to be focused on support for federal law enforcement. I think it's reasonable to assume that if the Prime Minister is in Ontario, he might be meeting with the Premier, and that there could be additional announcements in the next 24 hours.
Okay. Only, I mean, my reasoning for that is being a border community that we are, along with Windsor, parts of Cornwall, and that eastern end of Ontario. It's not just feds. It's not just us. It's a combination of collaboration between all municipal and federal forces, Canada Border Services, as well as our U.S. counterparts. So I would hope that the federal government looks at, obviously not just Ontario, because the longest undefended border in the world is us in the United States, and the fact that across the country it is a combination of these police forces that are involved. So I would hope that the feds put some money towards the provinces to help with coordinated efforts along borders. So again, it's something to foresee that it could come down, but again, it could help us with lowering our budget if grant funding does come through. Again, we can't speculate, but it may or may not. So I mean, that is, if it does come down, then we know it will help us a little bit with this portion of our budget. So, okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Member Steele. Any other questions? Thank you. So then, I'm going to try this again. Moved by Member Steele, seconded by Chair Kyoko, and based on the previous discussion, that subject to approval by Regional Council of the Consolidated Capital Budget, the Board receives the 2026 Capital Budget and Forecast Report and approves Option 2, a 2026 capital budget of $6,795,580 that excludes the body-worn camera capital project, that financing be initiated from the following reserve funds: Police Capital Levy Reserve in the amount of $2,978,080, Police Vehicles and Equipment Reserve Fund in the amount of $1,721,500, Regional Capital Levy Reserve in the amount of $2,096,000, and further that the 9-year capital forecast be received as a guideline for the development of future capital budgets. Any questions at this point? No, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Moving along to other new business, do any board members have any other new business? Member Steele?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chief, and probably Ms. Rollo would give the best answer, but, and I think I asked this at Regional Council, I think it was last year's budget, but with the growth that Niagara is seeing, we only receive a portion of growth dollars through the region towards our budget. Can you give us an explanation of exactly what that goes to? And should this board really be going to the region saying, look, growth really does affect the police department, and that further funding from growth should be allocated towards our budget? So can you give us an idea of where we stand today with, and I know it's not going to be exact dollars because they're calculated at.
So through to the chair, the region does, in their budget planning document, provide a estimate of what they're going to receive in terms of what, I think you're referring to assessment growth. I think it's usually about 1.5%. It's hard for me to say exactly where, how that funding is used. Does it cover a portion of the police budget? I'm not sure, but we aren't allocated any of that assessment growth in terms of our guidance or anything else. So I'm not in a position to say how they utilize that, but some services are provided a portion of that assessment growth. In Niagara, we are not.
So we had zero, you're saying now, that you know of?
Zero. Sorry?
What I'm saying is, of that assessment growth, we're getting nothing. What
Correct.
you understand.
Correct.
I understand from my answer at the region was that we were getting a portion, but that's fine. I'll ask that again to region, because I think that's ludicrous. A huge issue with policing is growth, and growth of people and businesses and all that other stuff, which brings complications with crime, which we've seen today, and how crime is so different today than it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. The 1.5%, a portion of that should be coming to the police force for certain aspects of our budget. So I'll leave that for myself and Councilors Kiokio and Yip to deal with that at the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members with other new business? No, Chief?
Thank you.
Thank you. The Public Finance Committee meeting is adjourned.